Hello and welcome back to Hadoop Exam Learning Resources. In this session, now we'll start domain-driven design and its artifacts, and we'll introduce this some stuff here: problem space and solution space. So let me start. So domain-driven design, when you work on it, your final expectation is like you should know like what is my strategic tools in the domains and what are my tactical things I should be having. So we will discuss each and every things in detail in the later session, but let's understand initially like domain driven design. When you work it, you need to divide it in two part: strategic tools and tactical tools. So strategic is more of a bigger level, you would identify your design objects, and then tactical tools are very smaller or fine grain level, which like even come to your code level as well, correct? Basically so that is what tactical tools. So we'll discuss more on this. So as part of strategic tools, you would be knowing ubiquitous language, bounded context, and context map. In tactical tools, what are your domain activities? All are domain objects, and what are domain extractions, which you need to know. So before even moving into this, let's go this and try to understand what is the difference between problem space and solution space, how it related to the domain driven design. So basically this is a concept. This is not an exact output from your domain driven design, but you need to explain you like what is domain driven design. So problem space and solution space can help you to understand it. So understand your business domain well and create a detailed domain model. That is your problem space and solution space comes into this, correct? So business understanding a business domain is your problem space, and coming out of detailed domain model is your solution space. Okay, so that is, just try to remember that right now. So when you design your software, your first criteria and as part of strategic tool, it's to find out your domains, and as we discussed, like core domain is very critical to find it out. So we can say our subdomain divided in three part: core subdomain, which is your main uh, things which is you need to know about your business, correct? It is must to find and has a highest priority as well as supporting subdomain. Like this you may or may not build in your organization, correct? Like scheduling solution if you need it, reporting solution if you need it. If softwares are available in market and easily fit into your requirement, you can use it. Else you can build it your custom requirement based on this. So these are supporting subdomain. Generic subdomain, which ideally you should try from outside and outsource it, like for example identity and access management, logging software. These kind of things you should not build it. These are very generic and everybody use in the market, and you can get it. They are open source, they are like available paid as well, and matured enough for doing this. So core is very critical, which not easily available in the market, and there must be a custom requirement for all this. So problem space is where you will perform high level strategic analysis and design within the constraint of a given project. Like insurance company can have a 10 different projects, so you need to focus only on the project which is assigned to you. Not all 10 projects is not your um, area to work on, correct? You would be given only one project to work on, so that is what you have to define. Generally software architect work 2 3 projects in parallel, but they should look each project in isolation, correct? The main challenges with splitting relate to handling the boundaries. That the main challenge when you try to that is what the main challenge when you find it when you design your software. So try to understand, like we'll go in detail about this to make it more explicit, but just to understand, like in the problem space when you work it, your main first thing which in your mind you should start doing it, how you divide your domain into the subdomain. So that is the first thing which you need to start working on, that when you like start understanding your design while discussing the domain expert. So how to identify the boundary for each context, correct? So basically if I'm working on the restaurant domain, so like my boundaries are what: order is one boundary, customer is different boundary, payment is another boundary, reservation is another boundary. So I need to know like what are the different boundaries, and it is not easy process. You need to write it down, you need to work with domain expert to explicitly separate out this into a subdomain part, correct? So there is a overlapping area. How would you handle this overlapping area? That is the main challenge you would have, how to deal with those area, correct? The design, to design a solution space, we need to match each subdomain to appropriate bounded context, correct? So I'll come back here. So basically that is what problem space is. What you need to understand your domain, and output of this is your solution space, which is a domain model, which like you identify yours. These are my subdomain, and this subdomain maps to one with the context, or one bounded context, basically the map to. So that is your solution space, correct? Now if I go further, like create your domain model, which include following part of strategic design. So we have discussed here, we have talked about strategic design. So this include three things: ubiquitous language, bounded context, and context map. So this is what you have to find it out for each subdomain. Bounded context, you need to know, ubiquitous language and domain model. So what all are this we'll discuss, but you need to know this. So create your domain model, which include the following three, which is part of strategic design: ubiquitous language, subdomain, which is like bounded context we discuss, and context map is a relationship between the various contexts. So here this lines you can see, these are the relationship it would show you. Solution space is where you implement the solution that your problem space discussion, uh, after discussing and with the domain expert and as part of your core domain. In domain driven design, a subdomain in the problem space is ideally mapped to one to one with the bounded context. Here as you can see, like this is map one to one here. Usually this is most of the case this would happen. Once you find out your subdomain, then you would create a context for each subdomain. Okay, I'll explain you in the later session with the example, like how you can actually derive this. uh, so now this is what it is, and most complex part is overlapping of the subdomain. That is very challenging to handle when you design your software. Domain driven design is taking the complexity of the business domain by aligning domain expert, correct? So this is domain expert is a part of your problem space. So when you divide your design, there are two parts, correct? Problem space and domain space, sorry, solution space. So domain expert, you can keep it under problem space side. They define their problem and you are creating a domain model using that. So that is, you are part of the solution space. Developers or engineers are part of, or architect are part of the solution space. So you are part of this. So how do you understand it conceptually? If in maths, if you have worked previously, ymx plus c here, correct? So this is my equation, or you can say or for example, y is equal to 3x plus 7. So y is my output space, correct? That is what I need it, and x is my input space, correct? So similarly, input space x is a, you can say problem space, and y is in my output space. This is solution which I am expecting. So if I put x here as equal to 2, so my output is what is basically 13, correct? So that is what my solutions is generated when domain expert is saying this is my input, so what should be my output. Similarly, you can map with this. So conceptually, to understand this, the business domain is the problem which we are trying to solve with the software effort. So the domain is the problem space, and you work with the domain expert with for this problem space, and what is address, and the domain model which comes as an output of this is your solution space, correct? So this is your solution space, and each subdomain can have their own domain model as well. So just remember this. Okay, so that's all about problem space and solution space. I'll cover in the next section this domain driven design in detail. So thanks for watching, and I hope you like this session. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe it. I'm stopping. Thank you.